Morning, good morning. All right. With the help of Hashem, we are learning PESACHIM Daf Kuf Yud. We started yesterday the sugya of zugos, as we explained it, that the pairs, especially pairs of equal value, which connects us to or makes us vulnerable to demonic forces, is the concept that in life there is the right and there is a wrong, there is a truth and there is the falsehood. And we have to have clarity in that. And the moment we start accepting this two-sidedness of everything, that is the root and that is the beginning of becoming vulnerable to anything and to everything that is of negativity. I would like to add a certain nakuda to that, especially since Tzemach asked about what about arbitration, what about pshara? And Bachlal Hasidus explains, the Rebbe explains, regarding the two opposite types of leadership that we are learning about the Hashgacha Pratis and the portion of Kisisa between Moshe and Aaron. Moshe, and the Rebbe connects that in Gemara and Sanhedrin, there's a question when it comes to a Beis Din, what is better, litigation or arbitration? Litigation meaning, are we going to pursue what the halacha says, and therefore there's going to be the party that's right and the party that's wrong? Or is there a virtue in first trying to make arbitration? And the Rebbe connected that to Moshe and Aaron, different leadership qualities. That Moshe was a man of truth. Moshe is the man of din. What does God say? And there's the one who's right and there's the one who's wrong. And Aaron was the Oyev Shalom, the Roid of Shalom. The whole MO of Aaron was validating each side. And when you make an arbitration, each side feels that at least they were partially validated. Now, I would just like to add that l'chora, what do we see? And we need to have both. We need to know when to have Moshe and when to have Aaron. But the Chet HaEgel, idolatry, came about when Moshe was absent, and the only type of leadership we had then was Aaron, who represented this every side is right. He was trying to al pi pshat, to appease the people, especially after he saw that they murdered Chur, b'chulei. So this mamash fits into the concept that we are sharing. And Bachlal, as we're going to learn in Daf Kuf Yud, that we're going to go from bad to worse, that first we are vulnerable to demonic forces. Then from there we become vulnerable to black magic, to kishuv, as we'll learn today. And the Gemara clearly will link zugos with demons, with shadim, and with kishuv, with sorcery. And then the worst of the worst is how this leads us into Avodah Zarah. Another quick intro, that the one Tosfos we have on Yuma Ayin Zayin Amid Beis, you can look over there. The Gemara there is speaking about the Ruach Ra, some sort of evil spirit that resides on one's hands. And quoting Tosfos says, regarding that Ruach Ra, that in these Western countries, like in France, there isn't this type of Ruach Ra. And then he adds, so Tosfos already mentions that we are not that precautious, we're not that careful when it comes to pairs. And Baruch, you mentioned something about two slices of bread, and I'll correct myself that what I told you yesterday was not correct. And as we'll see over here, also connected to our today's intro, that there is a difference of zugos when we are consuming something that is bidei shamayim, that is in its natural state. And this does also include wine, which is the anomaly. But like two eggs, all you did is we cooked it, versus the Gemara says something that was made bidei Adam, there we are less careful with zugos. And l'chayda here again, bidei shamayim represents the Moshe, and things that are bidei shamayim are right and wrong. There's no two sides. There's kedusha and there's klipa, versus the bidei Adam, which maybe is connected to the leadership, to the style of Aaron, which is the concept that Tzemach, where are you, of arbitration, of pshara. And sometimes there is the time and the place of having two sides. So this is not an absolute. And Adarabba, we're going to learn a side of different traditions that we received from Yosef the demon. Can you imagine? Yosef the demon taught the Chachamim things, and they are recorded in today's daf. But the biggest takeaway we're going to have from today is the Gemara gives us a klala de milsa, the following rule. And listen to these words. Kol de kapit, kapti bahadei. People that are overly particular, not to be connected to pairs. So then demons are particular with that person. So if they make a mistake once and they consume something or they connect themselves to something of an even number, then they are more vulnerable to trouble, to illness, to damage. The Gemara says that. But people that are not that particular, that actually takes away the force of the demonic powers, and they won't be that damaged. Nevertheless, the Gemara says, but we should be mindful of it. In other words, we're going to have to put, like everything else, what we're learning in the right context. We're not learning, this is not becoming, I never heard of this, and oh my God, and how many things in my life is connected to pairs. Calm down. We have to learn a lot more. And also, yes, there's a certain koyach that evil or negative forces have upon us if we open ourselves up to pairs. But this is not the Azay Yusoid in our Yiddishkeit over here. And we're going to learn many more details about Zugos today. And Chavra, let us start on Daf Kuf Yud Amud Aleph. We left off at the end of the fourth line from the top of the Amid, Tanu Rabbanan. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shachar kol nivud olam. Tanu Rabbanan. Isaiah used to say, Tanu, I'm a let in, but we're not Rabbanan. There's no way around it, guys. We have to learn. The goal is not to be the Rabbanan. The goal is to learn. Shoysa keflayim, if a person drinks in pairs, then dami beroisha, his blood is on his own head. In other words, the person is responsible, for his own death. So here we're beginning again that if a person is consuming an even number, then they are so vulnerable ad kedei kach that if some sort of demonic force kills them, it's their own fault. And again, referring back as the Gemara itself at the end of today's daf, we'll speak about the story that we have in Bava Metzia Pevav of Rabbi Bar Nachmani as he was running away from government officials that were looking to arrest him and to kill him, that one of those officials went into a bar. He witnessed him drinking 2 cups of wine or 2 cups of beer. The table was removed, so he consumed zugais, and he saw him being affected with a certain type of madness. The Gemara says that his face, that hadar partsufei la'achoyre, that his face turned the opposite direction, and the Rabbi healed him by having the table brought back and giving him a 3rd cup. But at kedei kach, is there a danger of zugas? Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Amosai, when do we say that drinking things in pairs make the person mamish open to getting killed? That's only bisman shaloira panei ashuk, that the person did not go outside or at least see the outside in between the consumption of cup number 1 and cup number 2. So therefore, cup number 2 connected itself to cup number 1. Now you got a pair. But if a person consumed something, here we're speaking about tashoy, so you drank something, but then you looked outside, or maybe you went outside. That in itself disconnects, interrupts between the second drinking and the first, and on a shus biyadi, then you are allowed to do it. And many say mikan, from here is the source, that after the 3rd cup, which is after Birchas Hamazon and the Seder, so now we're up to an odd number, we know that we will be drinking a 4th cup. That's how this whole sugya began here in Pesachim. How did the Chachamim enact something that is of a dangerous nature? Because we have Dalet Kaisos. What do we do now? We open up the door for Elyahu Hanavi, amongst the other reasons, simply opening up the door to the outside. Mamish, this allows us at least to see the Pnei Hashuk. Isn't that great? So now we made an interruption between the 3 and the 1. I know we had 3 answers in the beginning of the sugya, but this can be another way of explaining why there's no danger at all with the din dalat koisais, because we open the door right before we say shvei chamazcha. Amar Ravashi, Chazeina lei, I saw Rab Chananya bar Bibi, the ochal kasa, interesting expression that he ate a cup, but then have a nothing b'chazi ape shuka. After consuming 1 cup, he looked outside, he went outside, and then the Gemara doesn't add, and then he had a 2nd cup. So I saw that the Poyel Mamash people use that as a means of breaking the pair. Furthermore, says the Gemara, the law
at the end of if I bring in the mashka alein is verbaisim when you run out. So achal kotzer, he ate the cup.
Oh, I like that. Shkoyach tzemach. That's great. He ate the cup. Good. And when do we say that pairs are dangerous? That's only, what did we learn also yesterday? That if you drink 2 pairs and then you have a relation which weakens the body, then you are more vulnerable. In other words, it's not just the pairs in themselves. It's something else. If you connected yourself to Zugais and then you went on a trip, you went outside, Yaakov Avinu was afraid for Benjamin to go on the trip. If what's meant to happen is meant to happen, will happen even if he stays home. So that's, the Chazal, Rashi brings it in Chumash, that Hasatan mekatreg b'shasa sakana. In other words, traveling is dangerous relative to staying at home. But if a person is staying at home, if you are in a less dangerous location, that depends who you live with. But normally, so then you can drink pairs and not be concerned at all. There's no fear. Furthermore, Amar Rabbi Zajac, that you should know that the lishin, that going to sleep, wow. It means having zugas before going to sleep is like having pairs before traveling, which is dangerous. A big part of Kriyash Mashalamita, right, we're speaking about spiritual danger, is about saying psukim that bring about extra protection from certain negative forces that have greater empowerment over us, dafka, when we sleep, when our koichas hagiluyim, right, are being mistalik. Amanaf Papa. Another thing, that going to the bathroom also is I don't understand this only because the lavatories or the latrines were outhouses, so it's not about going outside. I would say maybe, right, we learned this also in Brachas and Avodah Zarah, right, the shift, I think there's a certain demon that is connected to the bathroom. There's a certain sakana. B'chlal, bathroom is not such a clean location. These negative forces are connected to dirt, begashmias. Right, again, cleanliness, the Pinchas Ben Yair that we just quoted, that cleanliness is one of the steps in becoming more connected to God. Right? Are you telling me that if you're staying at home, it's not harmful? Wow, not true. How can you say that? When Rava would drink, Mamei Kishure, isn't that Gavaldik? Rava had in his house beams. And when he drank 1 cup, he looked at 1 beam because he wanted to help cup, what number cup is he up to? So cup number 1, he was connected to beam number 1. When he drank number 2, he would look at beam number 2. That was his way of keeping count. Why? To make sure that he doesn't end up with an even number. Now, Rava always did it l'chura, not only before he went to sleep or before he went to the restroom or before he went on a trip, even when he was staying home. Furthermore, Abaye, every time he drank, if he would drink 1 cup, so mankit la ime, right, his stepmother would hold 2 cups in both, 1 in each of her hands, to remind him like this: if you want to stop, gesund to hate. But if you're thinking of taking cup number 2, don't take cup number 2. Take right away 2 and 3. Always. Or V'Rav Nachman by Yitzchak, the last narrow line, that when he drank 2 cups, so then mankit le shamoy chad kasa, so then his attendant would hold out 1 more cup again to remind him not to end his drinking session with an even number. And if he drank 1 cup, similarly, mankit le trei kasa v'habitrei yodei. So his attendant again would hold out 2 cups. In other words, if you're going to take 1 more, don't take 1 more, take 2 more. And that's always, even when they stay home. So there's a very important one-liner. It says, the Gemara, the end of the wide line, Adam chashiv shani, Zakar Ashbam, 3 lines and 4 lines under the Gemara, the Masri shedim nafshayu la'azuke. Shedim go on mesiras nefesh to injure a prominent person. So the greater the person, the more protection they need from shedim. Shedim have to make a larger effort if you stay home, which is why normally if you stay home, don't be concerned about zugais. But since for the other out to get the adam chashuv, that's called evil. Dafke, there's goodness. Dafke, someone is accomplishing something, I'm going to stop that. See, the demons is the beginning of evil. Okay. And they're moiser nefesh, the more kedusha, the more protection you need. Second white line. Amar Ulam, this is so gavalik. Asara koisois, until now, right, especially the kash of the Gemara, Dalet koisois, is dangerous. It was clear that zugais is not only connected to 2, it's connected to even. 2, 4, 6. But says Ula that there comes a number, even though it's even, you're already beyond zugos. And what number is that? 10. In other words, 2, 4, 6, 8 is a problem with all of the limitations, qualifications that we had until now. But once you hit 10, you can stop with 10. Asara koises ein behem mishum zugos. And Ula l'tame, to Amar Ula, or v'amri la, that the following was actually taught not by Ula, but in a Braisa, the Masnisa Tana. Chedra, we have this in Ksubais, right, regarding the meal that was given to mourners after a burial. So nowadays we have Xanax and who knows what other types of chemicals that calm a person down. They used wine. They would drink a lot of wine. Guys, wine may not be consumed when a person is an oinen, meat and wine. But afterwards, I don't know other minhagim, and no one should have this. When a person is sitting shiva, they can have meat, they can have wine, and they enacted 10 cups to be given to an avu. And here again, the same concept of the beginning of our sugya regarding din dalot koises. That even when you are up to the number 10, 10 is an even number. That asara koises yesh v'mishum zugos heichi kaimer abanan. How can the chachamim stand up and the tiknu milsa and enact to give an aval 10 cups of wine with the whole seder we have in Ksubais, the asila de sakana. So by 10, there's no issue. Aval tamniya, but when you have 8, still yesh v'hem mishum zugos. So you have to have 1, 3, 5, and 7. Weiter. That is opinion of Ula. Let's go further. Rav Chizda and the Rabbi Bar Rav Huna, the Omri Tarvayu. In the Birchas Kohanim Chevra, we have 3 psukim. Yevarechacha Yo'er Yisa. Yevarechacha has 3 words. Yo'er has 5 words, right? Yo'er has 5 words. Yisa Hashem Panim Elach V'Yasmecha Shalom has 7 words. So he says, Gavaldik, that Shalom is a code for number 7. Then if you consume or connect yourself to number 7, 7 is effective that it takes you away from the 6, because 6 is zugos. So 7, l'toiva mitzdaref. But if you had something after 7, which would normally be number 8, not for zugos, but l'ra eina mitzdaref. In other words, not like Ula that says that only when you hit the even number of 10 are you out of the danger of zugos, which means 8 and lower. 8, 6, 4, 2 is zugos. No, he holds that 8 is also not zugos, because once you hit number 7, that's part of maybe the brach of the kohen. Now you're in shalom. Now you're good. What you do afterwards, it's not 8, it's 7 and 1. 7 is odd and 1 is odd. 6 is a problem. Another shita, even more lenient, that Rabbi Yosef Damar Tarvayu, that I like your Birchas Kahanim analogy. Okay, by Birchas Kahanim, we have 3 psukim. Yes, Shalom is the longest one, is the 7th word. But what about V'choneka, right? The Yo'er clause, the middle bracha, the middle clause has 5 words. V'choneka is 5. So here also I'll say that V'choneka l'toivim mitzdaref. That means if you had 4, 4 is bad. 4 is zugos. So when you have 5, 5 helps you getting out of the 4. But if you have something after 5, which would be 6, it's not counted at 6 anymore for zugos. It's 5 and 1. So he's being more lenient. L'ra le'mitzdaref. In other words, there's no issue with 6. Aval arba, you got a problem with 4. Yesh ben mishum zugos. And now let's go to the Abai and Rava. And Rava is already they're the final opinions in the Gemara. Abai and Rava say, no, I like what you're saying. Good. Let's go to Birchas Kohanim. Why Shalom? Why V'choneka? Go to the Yishmerecha. 3. So say that the Yishmerecha l'toivim mitzdaref l'roim mitzdaref. That means 2 is a problem. And when you have 3, you got out of the problem of zugos. But when you go further, you don't count 4. It's 3 and 1. In other words, 4 is not a problem. In other words, according to this, the whole premise of the Kash of the Gemara is ois. Zugos is only by 2, not by 4. So there's no problem with arba koises. Perhaps Mikan, the Rebbe says that under 40 for 4 cups. Zugos, that's the answer. That we're going to the Shita, that once you hit 3, it means you can't have 2. God forbid, only 2. You have to have 3 or 4. And if you can have 3 or 4, then why wouldn't you have 4? Because it's not number 4, it's 3 and 1. Verstehst? The time the Rava apiknu l'Rabbanan ba'arba koisos. Rava would give the Chachamim, he would allow them to leave his house after he knew they only drank 4 cups. It's against everything we're learning. They're leaving. He knew they drank 4. He should have given them a 5th. No. There was once a story, Afal Gab, the Itzak Rava Bar Levoi, who was a Talmud of Rava, who once, after having 4 cups and leaving Rava's presence, did get hurt, and l'chu'ura, that should have been because of Zugais. So the Gemara says it wasn't because of that. Rava knew that one scenario where that Yid left his presence after drinking 4 and got damaged was not because of Zugais. Because the Amar Rava says, Ahu Mishum, Rava said why? The Oisfan bet Pirka Have. Amazing. As the Rashbam writes, 8 and 7, a few lines under, let me find the Rashbam over here, the 8 lines under the Gemara, that this Yid, this Rabbi Bar Levoi, Shehik Sholi B'Shas Hadrasha U'Baysheni Barabim. This student made a point to ask questions in public, not because the student was curious. He was trying to shame Rabbi. He was that guy that felt, I can trip him up. So that Rabbi said that. He's trying to shame me. Guys, it's important to ask questions. There's no shame in learning. But to have someone just asking questions to shame the other, that you're not allowed to do. And that's why he got damaged, and not because of Zugais. So I have now various opinions. Whether Zugais after a certain number, even according to Ula, by 10, you're good already. But imagine the most lenient opinion, which is Abaye and Rava, that really Zugais is a problem with 2. You have to have a 3rd. But once you hit 4, connected to maybe the protection of the Yishmerecha, then we are protected. The Yishmerecha, how great is that?
There's a connection 4 and Yishmerecha?
Yeah, because the Yishmerecha is the 3rd word in Birchas Kohanim. So once you connect it to 3, there's such a strong protection in 3 that when you have anything after 3, it's not mitzvah. That's part of the Shmir. Beautiful.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Rabbi Yosef. Now look at the play of words. The Amoyre Rabbi Yosef says that Amali Yosef Shida. Now you have good demons, Torah demons, whatever that means. So Yosef Shida tells Rabbi, he told me, I want you to know that Ashmedoi Malka de Sheda, guys, this is the Sugyan Gittin Samaches, right, with Shlomo HaMelech, sending Benayo Ben Yehoyada to go get Ashmedai. Ashmedai is the king of the demons, and he is Memuna Hu Akule Zuge. We're making a explicit link of pairs. The Gemara until now spoke about you're in danger. No, it's connected to demonic forces, and therefore, what was his message? Umalke loy ikra mazik. Rabbi Yosef's message from Yosef Shida is, according to this first version, don't be that afraid of Zugais. Like Rashbam says, that a king, 7 lines before the bottom of the Amid, ein rogel bekach. A king is not going to go stam damage. The genai hu loy. It's beneath the dignity of the king to go hurt someone. V'loy chayshinan lezugais. What he meant to say is, don't be so chayish, don't be so worried about Zugais, the milsa de loishchichu. However, the Rashbam continues, zimnan denizik, sometimes the king will get you. And therefore, if you want to be machmed, and v'laso is niti rusa, you say rasa, you want to add the extra protection, then be mine. That's already, we're already limiting Zugais. That is the Rashbam. The second Tosfos says no. That what Yosef Sheda meant to say is not the way that Rashbam is saying, he's saying that demons, that the demonic koyach, which is connected to Zugais, is not that worrisome, but Kishuv is also connected to Zugais, and that is worrisome, and we'll see many stories further. So again, the way I understand it is that the beginning of all evil, we'll call that demons. Then from there we go into the dark arts, and from there we go into Avodah Zarah. This is from bad to worst. Okay. Back in the Gemara, says other people had the opposite version, that Yosef the demon tells Rabbi Yosef, Adarabba, when he told him that you should know that Ashmedai, the king of the demons, he's the Mamuna, he himself is involved in Zugais. Malka Raschanahu. Kings are temperamental. It depends which king. Right? They think they're God. and Adarabba. So they're the most dangerous. King Stam in the Welterrein, because the king is the king and he can do it, will do things that are of damaging nature. The king does what he wants. So actually what Rabbi Yosef was sharing from Yosef Shidas to be very careful with Zugais. Another tradition from this Yosef Shida, he didn't only come to Rabbi Yosef, Yosef Sheda, that regarding drinking in pairs, bitrei, if you had to, which connects a person the most to Zugais, then Katlina, then there is a koyach on the demons, even to kill that person. But Arba, once you hit number 4, so here we are, so to say, making as a pshara, Abai and Rava had a point, but there's a limit. But Arba loy Katlina. Once you left 2, you come even to the closest, even, which is 4, it's not as negative as 2. So they won't be able to kill you for that. But Arba maskina, but they can still, it can still bring you to injury. Likewise, bitrei, bein b'shogeg, bein b'mezid. You're vulnerable. But Arba, only b'mezid, only when you deliberately had 4, b'shogeg loy. And now the Gemara says, okay, now that we learned all these shittas, what happens that a person forgot about Zugais, and they had 2 cups, and they went, what should they do? V'i ishtalei, if a person forgot, and the ikri, and so it's a getroffen, and it happened that you had 2 or 4, depending on which opinion, and v'nafik, and now you went baderech. So my takante, what should you do? So here we're going to have something that we had in Berachas Nun Hey. Remember the 3 Amoraim that were sitting together and they were sharing secrets. And there we were speaking about ayin hara. And what happens if you think either that someone will give you an ayin hara, or the way Tosfos there says, if you will look at someone else and give them an ayin hara. So we had this interesting of putting the thumb in the palm. Remember that? The right thumb in the left palm and the left thumb in the right palm. That was in brachas. And to say that I ano ploini ben ploini mizara di Yosef ano, the loiko shalta ba eino bisha. Amazing. That is going to be used there differently. So what should you do? Linkoid zekafa the yamine. Take the thumb of your right hand, the yada the smaller, and put it. The yada. I'm sorry. Take the thumb of your right hand, the yada the yamine, and put it in your left hand. And uzkafa the smaller biyada the yamina, and take the thumb of your left hand and put it in your right hand, exactly this, or like this. Maybe the right should always be over the left. And v'nei mahachi, and you have to start talking to the demons. And listen to this. You tell them, hey, atun va'ana, you hear? Oh, so now it's you and I. You and I is 3. Now, how is you and I 3? Right, Rabbi Zajac just walked out for a second, right? The math that we learned was 1 and 1 is 2, not 3. We're connected to Hashem Echad. So even if temporarily we want this side and that side, in our primius, we're connected to one God. Demons begin by dualism. So you tell them, you're coming because I'm 2, because I connected myself to Zugais. But the moment you're here, now we're already 3. You and I means I'm 1. Ich ben Ayid, Hashem Echad. You are connected to 2 sides. You're connected to dualism. So 2, you're 2, and I'm 1. That's 3. And that in itself breaks your power to hurt me. Now, if you make that statement, holding your hands in that position, you might hear the demon talk back to you. So now we're having a whole potential conversation, and you have to know how to respond.
Rabbi, he would reply to you that you're connected to Hashem. Now that makes us 4.
Oh, so the Gemara gives a similar response, Baruch, you're good. Now, and if you hear the demon tell you back, how great is that? No, you drank too. You're not that connected to God. You see, Baruch, if he acknowledges God is present, he can't do damage. The damage begins with the absence of God. He says, no, that you're also connected to 2 sides. As I am, he'll acknowledge that he's 2. But if the demon will say, I'm 2 and you are 2. So how much do we have? We have 4. 4 is weiter, so guys. And if he tells you back, Atun ba'anoho arba, the demon rejects us being connected to 1, so then tell him back, accept it. So you're right. I'm connected to dualism. I'm connected to 2, but you have even more division than me. So if I'm 2, you demon, you're 3. And 2 and 3 is 5. 5 is weiter an odd number. Namely, atun ba'ano chamsha. It's no matter how split we are, a demon is even less wholesome. Wholesomeness is kedusha. The sophistication is klipa. The ish should be like no. If I'm 3, the 3. That aton ba'ano hashita. So tell him, accept when he says something, don't fight him on it. Except if he says that I'm 3, good, but you're 4. You're divided 1 shtickle more than me always. Neimolei atun ba'ano shiva. And the Gemara says that hava uvda, such a thing once happened. A guy drank zugais and he went out in the street and he put his thing and he made that incantation and the demon spoke back and he heard him. And every time he upped the number, the demon says, no, it's 8. So he said, it's 9, 10. And they kept on having this conversation. The guy was already Meshuggah until they hit number 101. Can you imagine? This guy, you have to be azad nudnik like the demon. Ad me'av echad. And when he told the demon, now 101, now 101 is connected to Malach Mechol. Al pi Kabbalah, Malach Mechol is the Sar Hagadol, that is the Saneguria of the Jewish people. And what happened was, upakashi, that the demon burst.
Zalderech yeshli kol yeshli rav.
Amazing.
Right?
Okay. Yeah. So
maybe it comes from here.
Demon busting.
And bells, if you want to give tzedakah $100, you give 101. Maybe it comes from here.
Giveaways 101. Don't forget, Shlomi, there's also the Chazal, Dafka Benegeya, 100 to 101. But good, very good. Now we're going from demons to kishuv, because as we, especially according to Tosfos, that demonic forces are weaker. Even worse, in the negative, is already sorcery. So just like we mentioned that Zugais is connected, according to Yosef Sheda, to Ashmedoi, the melech of the demons. So you have a male king of the demons, and you have a female madam over all of the sorceresses, all of the witches. So now we're going to go into that. So Amar Ameir, Amar Li Reish Tinhi, from Reish, the head, the madam, the Nashim Kashfaniyos, the head of all of the sorceresses told me that that if you encounter witches and that they're going to make some sort of spell over you. So now that we just learned about a certain incantation, which will help us be protected from shadim, now we'll learn another incantation that will help us be protected from a witch. And this is what we say. See, with demons, it was amazing. There was a certain amount of respect. We're not challenging them. It was when they say that I'm 2, I said, okay, if I'm 2, but you're 3. There's a certain respect over here. Here, it's a little bit, you have to be a bit more aggressive because they have more koyach. And you have to begin by saying, Chari chamime b'dekulei, baiziyah lipo maichu, hot excrement in torn baskets into your mouths. You nashei the charashaya, you women of sorcery, you witches. And then you say the following. Now they would have more koyach to put a spell by using certain items. So you have to mention all of the 4 items. And that is like this. They would use hair, especially if they can get hold of hair of their potential victim. So they would say that karach karchaichi, may your hair, because they're using hair in sorcery, may your hair be ripped out to expose your baldness. Statement number 2, parach parchaichi, may the breadcrumbs, we had that about bread, remember not to touch bread because maybe they imbued it with as a spell. The breadcrumbs that you using to perform kishiv, may the crumbs fly away. Daf Kuf Yud Amud Beis. The third item that they would sometimes use would be spices. So you would say, Ibadur tavlu naichu, may your spices be scattered. And then the final is there was something unique about saffron. Parchazika limoirika chadata, may the wind blow away the fresh saffron, the naktisu that you are holding. So here, breadcrumbs, spices, and saffron, you nashim kashvaniyos. And then you say that ad dechonani v'chonanchi loy asisi lagoi, that as long as I had my chain as long as I had my grace, it means God was graceful with me, and I made sure to be careful and to be graceful to myself. That in itself made sure that I don't come amongst you, that I don't fall into your clutches. That was because I used to have grace in the eyes of God. But now that I fell into your hands, now that I might be affected by you, is a raya that it's evident that my grace, right, and your grace towards me has cooled down. Here also you have a certain amount of respect towards them. And that's the incantation that will protect you from a kishuv spell. I don't remember where, but there's another Gemara that says that if a person is afraid that they were put under the spell of black magic, they should say that Hashem hu Elokim Einoid Molvadi. That's a lot easier to remember. This is like Ansa Megillah. And I remember a Yid that came to us in Brazil, that first went to the north of Brazil and told him that something like this happened to him. In Brazil, these things happen. He felt that he was put under a kishuv spell, and at Gezogt Hashem hu Elokim Einoid Molvadi, he repeated it again and again and again. And all of the kishuv makers with their chickens, he had a moide de kamaisa, they ran away. This was a Yid from Bnei Brak. That was a great fundraiser. And that was a great story. Okay, weiter. Weiter. In Eretz Yisrael, they were not that particular with zugais. Now, as we explained in our intro, even in the Gemara, when we speak about demons, the demons, you'll see, they're not so powerful. Kishuv was more fearful. And that's because as long as we are connected to Torah, so we have a greater clarity of, the right and the wrong, the law of God. Like we said, Moshe Rabbeinu, Torah's emes. So the Yidden in Eretz Yisrael, because of their connection to the Torah, so they didn't subscribe into this two sides to everything. No, there's not. They knew there's the right and there's the wrong. Now, Rav Dimi min Arda, he was different. He was from Narda. That's Bavel. He was makbid so much, afilu arushma or aroishma the chavisa, that he sold the barrels of wine. And when you had barrels of wine, when people bought it, so how much wine did they take? So in the barrel, there were like indentations that marked, on a measuring vessel to know, 5 liters, 4 liters, 3 liters, even the indentations that marked the height or the measure of the barrel, he made sure never to put on the barrel an even number. He was very careful not to have anything even. And you know what happened? That since there was once a time that he was connected to Zugais, and boom, upaka chavis, and the whole barrel blew up. The barrel exploded. This concept that it's a two-way street. Call the milsa. Call the kapid if someone is very particular with Zugais. Then if he never is connected to even, he'll be protected. But if he'll even once make a mistake, kapti bahadei, the demons will be very particular for him. And they're looking out for him to make a mistake. Udeloi kapid, and people that are not that particular about zugais, then like kapti bahadei, that in itself, this empowers all of these koiches, whether it is shadim, whether it is kishuv. So why are we learning about it? Why are we learning about it? So the Gemara says that even those who udeloi kapid, you have to be mindful of it. Everything in the right balance. Says the Gemara, Ki asi Rav Dimi Yomer. Rav Dimi came, it means he came from Eretz Yisrael to Babel. And again, in Eretz Yisrael, as we just mentioned, they were not makbid on zugais. But he's saying they were not makbid on everything that's even. But there were certain things that even in Eretz Yisrael were makbid on. Amazing. And what is that? Shtei beitzim, not having 2 eggs. 4 eggs, fine. We can rely on Abaye and Rava, right? V'yishmerecha. 2 eggs, no. Shtei agoizim, 2 walnuts. Shtei kishuyim, 2 cucumbers. And here we go to what happens if you forget a part of the tradition. And then he knew there was 2 of something else, but he forgot what it is. So he says, there's one other thing that you have to be careful, and that is halacha l'Moshe Sinai, that we are susceptible, that it makes a person susceptible to harm. So here's the thing: we accepted what Rav Dimi said, that we should be more Israel-like. We should be more like Bnei Marava, but we have to be makbid by 2 eggs, 2 walnuts, 2 cucumbers, but 2 of what? We didn't know what is. So you know what happens? So we're back to square one. So now we cannot have anything in pairs because maybe that is the davar acher. We didn't know, at least we in Bavel, my new davar acher. So we're back to square one, at least by 2. Maybe not by 4, but by 2. That the Gazur Rabbanan Bekule Zuge, because they says, this might be davar acher. This is almost.
Can I ask a quick question?
Premise that they were makbid in Bavel. So even when they heard such a statement, it didn't help them. What was the davar acher? We don't know. Then nothing in 2. Yes, Baruch.
So I'm still confused. If you have 2 eggs, two of this, if you take a chazayas of some of it and remove it, does that now make it odd?
Yes, or add. It's amazing. The second day, you're thinking about removing. Most Jews, when we think about food, we think about adding. But I like the way you think. I'm also to eat a little bit less.
You leave a little bit.
Yeah. Eat a little bit less. Leave a little bit over. But I'm going to give you said about the bread. Listen to this. And again, what we learned on Amud Aleph regarding number 10, number 8, number 6, number 4. Remember that were all of the different opinions. Listen, lo yamaran elali mazikin. So even in Babel, there was a certain number where they say, after that, even though it's even not a problem. That's only when we are focusing on how Zugais makes us vulnerable to demons. But if there is someone who's practicing sorcery and they are trying to hurt us, and we made ourselves vulnerable because we are connected to Zugais, then any even number will give them greater ability to damage us. Because the koyach of kishuv is stronger than the koyach of demons. And the proof is from a story with so many messages from the story. But let's start. Kiha dahu gavra. There was a man, the garshal devisu, that divorced his wife. And as we will see, this was not an amicable divorce. And even though it says azl, but it's on the she. Azla, she went after she got divorced, and insava lechenva, she married a shop owner. Now the shop owners, what's implied is they had in the corner of the shops. Today you have coffee shops, or you have the coffee corner. They had a beer corner, so there was a location in the shop to drink beer. The first husband every day would come to that shop. Maybe it was the only one in town, and he would have his beer, happy hour. Now she did not like seeing him. And Havaka of the Lake Shafim, she would try to perform sorcery to hurt him. But in order for her to have that koyach, the victim, has to become vulnerable. And but she was unsuccessful in hurting him. Why? Because this guy, he followed the tradition of Babylonia. He was very cautious, very particular. He never drank anything in pairs. He had 1, he had 3, he had 5. However, Yom Echad, one day, Ishte Tuva. One day he drank too much. Now what happens is that when you drink too much, right, you forget math. You can't talk. It affects your speech, and it affects your ability to count. He forgot how much he drank. And the Gemara, it's amazing. We go into the details. And this is important because even though, again, on Amud Aleph, we learn that even the most stringent opinion about Zugos by Shadim is once you hit 10, once you pass 8, you're good. Here, he passed that. It's not that he lost his count and he had 8. So at least La'ula, he was in danger. No, that At Shitzar Havatsoyel, until 16, his mind was clear. And he knew where he's up to. And he would not even have left by 16. He would have had 17. The problem was that after he hit cup 16, he completely blacked out Bimazot. He doesn't recall. And he wasn't mindful enough to be cautious not to leave the bar, not to leave this chenva'ah, having consumed an even number of cups. This was not coffee. This was alcohol. This was beer or wine. And what happened was de facto that afikse bezuga. He left the shop after drinking an even number. And don't forget, she was practicing on him kishuv every day. He was protected from it because he wasn't connected to zugais. Now she got him. And now the spell took effect. And Kihava Azl, when he was leaving, what happened was Gas Be Hahu Taya'a, a Taya, an Arab, encountered him. And how much do we have in the Gemara about these Arabs that they have like a sixth sense, right? Stop plowing your field because I hear from the mooing of your cow that the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed. The Taya was the one that knew where the Haruge, where the people, the Doir Hamidbar were buried. V'chulei. Here, this Arab, as it says in the Zohar, that every person has a Tzelem Elikim. And the Tzelem Elikim that we have in Kabbalah is not the Nefesh Elikis, it's not the Nefesh Abahamis, but it's a certain levush through which both of our souls connect to the body. And 30 days before a person passes, the Tzelem Elikim leaves. And that's why, for example, when the spies went into the Holy Land and they said, Sor Tzilam Mahaleim, that there's no more tzelem on their faces. What they were really trying to say is that we see that they won't live. There's a story with the Alter Rebbe, with the Tsar, I forgot which Tsar, the Tsar that there was a coup and he was murdered, and then his son took over, or his nephew took over. That Tsar, the Alter Rebbe was living in Petersburg, because that was the gzeira on him then, that he needed to stay at least in the city, and he made B'dikas Chametz, and for the Alter Rebbe, B'dikas Chametz was a big to-do. And after many hours of looking through his apartment, he went on the porch. And Ba'ashgacha Pratis, when he went on the porch, the Tsar's carriage was going by. The Alter Rebbe looked in the carriage, he saw him, and the Alter Rebbe says, this pasuk, Sor Tzila Ma'aleim, the Tsar, there's no more tzelem. Once a person has no tzelem, it says in the Zohar, it means that for sure within 30 days, the person will pass away. So here it says that the Taya encountered this first husband, and Elmar Lay, and he tells him, dead man walking, where does it come from? From here. Gavra katilo huda azalachem. A dead man is walking here. He saw how she had already, the witchcraft had an effect. Now, he became, Rashbam says, he became weak. So he wanted to hold on to something. So Azal Chafke Ladikla, he was walking by a palm tree. He hugged, he leaned, he grabbed the palm tree. So there was an interchange between the palm tree and the person. So everything has moisture in it. So all of the moisture of the palm tree went into him. So what happened is that Savach Dikla, the palm tree shriveled, and Upakahu, and he exploded. So it's amazing. And Amad Aleph, we learned that if we properly speak to the demons, they bust. But here it's the opposite. Here the koyach of Kishav is that he became imbued with all of the moisture. And maybe, Chasidus, moisture, right, Alter Rebbe, Perek Aleph, that Mayim is the source of all Minei Tainug. And Tainug is one of the ways that we become more disconnected from godliness, which makes us more vulnerable to demons and to Kishuv, whatever. Right. Amar Rab Avira, another detail, that ka'aros are cooked dishes, food that is prepared through human intervention, viki karis and breads. Here's doctor, breads, loaves of bread. It's called a man-made item, a man-made product. Ein behem mishum zugos. Samachai, you missed the beginning was that maybe Moshe and Aaron, that we said Moshe and Aaron is like God-made and man-made, that there is a place for arbitration, there is a place for compromise, there is a place for pshara, and over there it's not a negative thing. So something that's connected to us, fine to have both sides. Klala de Milsa, Kol Shadamro B'dei Adam, Ein Behem Mishum Zugos. It's like the koyach of Aaron. It's amazing that wine is not considered B'dei Adam. Gomru b'dei shamayim, something that is, cooking an egg is also b'dei shamayim because you didn't change the egg itself. Yeah, you made it from raw into boiled, but the egg is the egg. Maybe scrambled eggs, maybe it's not a problem. Maybe it's called already a ka'ara, it's called already a cooked dish, stama. Maybe only hard-boiled eggs, maybe. B'dei shamayim, b'milei minei demechal, regarding food, also regarding food. Also, we're limiting zugais, not anything. Food or drink, bidei adam, which includes beer, then yes, chayshinan. Another detail, chanus. If you're not drinking at home, if you're drinking in a drinking place, right today in a bar, it's not your location. 1 second, asks everyone, didn't we just have a story before of the man, the first husband? Yeah, because that's why the ex-wife did kishuv on him. That's more powerful. Here, you're not going to get out of these things. But when we're speaking about the demonic power, not someone trying to practice sorcery on you, here we're saying that if you drank the pair even of minei machol, that is gomru bidei shamayim, Eimem mishum zugais. Okay. That's Gomru b'dei Adam also. The Rishonim say the same thing. Whether beer, I think beer is also considered Gomru b'dei Adam. So why is it Eimem mishum zugais? Because there was someone trying to damage them, because there was someone trying to practice sorcery. But wine, just to know, wine is considered Gomru b'dei Shamayim. It's as if God made the grapes with the wine in it already. You just have to get it out. We say that uniquely we say that by wine, and we say that by olive oil. Right? Nimrach, another din. If I drank one, I ate one, and I only had a mind to have one, or to have three, or to have five, and then I had another one. I changed my mind. I never lechatchila planned to eat the pear.
Aren't we doing that all the time?
I know people that when they sit by the table and their steak, they lechatchila have in mind to eat two. That's called zugais. If it's raw, once it's cooked, you can argue that it's already gomru b'dei adam.
Rabbi,
Yes.
Rabbi, in halacha today, how does this all apply to us?
It's like the Gemara says, that quoting the Tosfos that we began today in Avodah Zarah. This is not a halacha. We're learning about shmiras hanefesh. There's a whole siman in the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch that we have, thank God, about shmiras hanefesh. Like when you come back from a levaya, if you encounter a woman, jump. The malach hamavos might get you. There are certain things, there are certain behaviors that we should be careful of. And this is not the Yisoid of Yiddishkeit. This is not the Aseres Hadibros. Like this is not the 613 mitzvahs. It's good to be mindful of it.
So are we being mindful? We're making 2 eggs of breakfast in the morning. I mean,
Yeah,
where does it end? I mean,
many people have a tradition not to make 2 boiled eggs. That's fika. Many people, when it comes to drinking l'chaim, they have 1 more cup. Have another l'chaim, or Baruch would have 1 cup less. I would have by l'chaim 1 cup more. But I'm going to get to that. What happens if you have a doubt? 1 minute. So, and therefore, since nimlach, there's no zugais, so a oireach, if I'm a guest in your house, I am not really the balabas to determine that I can have 2. I might look at the 2 steaks or look at the 2 eggs and say, wow, I'm going to have 2, I'm going to have 4. And after I take 1, you, the balabas, will take the serving plate away. So an oireach knows that whatever I take, maybe I'll get more, maybe I won't. So they don't combine. Oireach ein by mishum zugas. Each one stands for itself. Nothing. Isha ein ba mishum zugas. This is referring to drinking wine. Women b'chlal did not sit down to have a drinking session. So even if they ended up drinking 2 cups, it's not 2, it's 1 and 1. But the isha chashuva, isha chashuva, yeah, she would sit down to have a drinking session. So then chashinan. Amar Rab Chinana bereid Rabbi Yeshua. Ispargus, guys, we had this in brachas. Ispargus was a certain therapeutical drink that was made out of cabbage with wine, or cabbage and beer. People would drink it on an empty stomach. So there would be some alcoholic content in it. So what happens if a person, let's say, had 2 cups of wine, and then they had a cup of espargos, or a cup of espargos and 2 cups of wine? So if you count it in the sum total, you'll come to an odd number. So we do that. Mitzdaref l'toiva. But if the opposite, if a person had 1 cup of wine and 1 cup of espargos, if you were to count them together, then you would come to an even number. Then you say they don't combine, because espargos is espargos and wine is wine. They don't combine. Okay, you don't know whether you had 2 l'chaims or 3 l'chaims. What should you do? So you should be machmer. You know what l'chumra means? Have another cup. 1 second. Maybe you had an odd. And maybe having another is making it even. No, we don't say that, Yaakov, because Limanavshah, as we just learned, you can always say that what you drank right now was a new drinking. You didn't lechatchila set out to have this final one. So, Mama, if you had an even number until now, and now you're having the other one, we're going to consider the other one a new one. So it's 4 and 1, or it's 2 and 1. If you had a even number, then we'll connect it. We can do that. You can use it for whichever way it's needed. However, the Amri law, other people have a version that what Ravina said in front of Rava was that if you have a zugay, if you have a doubt, then be lenient. You know, being lenient. Stop. Don't be that particular. It is being that particular that makes it worse. So do you figure out how to resolve the zugais, or when you have a doubt, you say that it's not such a serious thing. I'm mindful of it, but I'm not making this into a. I'm not gonna make myself crazy with this. Amar Rabbi Yosef. Today the chamra v'chad l'shichra. I go back, guys. Beer is also clear. From beer is included. According to him, beer is a problem. So if you have 2 cups of wine and 1 cup of beer, so you can argue, oh, you had 3. No, loy mitzdaref. Doesn't combine. You have to have another cup of wine. However, if you have 2 cups of beer and you have 1 cup of wine, then we say you're good. Then you had 3. You didn't have 2. And this is the rule, guys, that the less significant doesn't combine with the more significant. Right? Beer is less significant. If you had 2 cups of wine and you want something that is lesser chashuv to combine with the more chashuv, it does not work. But something that's more significant, yes, combines with something that's less significant. And where do we learn that from? The simanech. So we're going to a classical din in Mesechtes Kalim. Over there, we're speaking about the minimum size of a material for us to consider it a keli, which also includes a beged, making it susceptible to becoming tamei. And it depends what this garment is made out of, what this keli is made out of. And the Mishnah says, if it's mat material, it has to be at least 6 tvachim or larger for it to be considered something that is susceptible to becoming tamei. If it's made out of hide, hide is more chashuv than mat, 5 tvachim, right? We learned this dinim. So if it's made out of goat's hair, then it is 4 tvachim. If it's made out of cloth, remember that then in cloth, then it's 3 tvachim. We're not speaking about the 3 finger breadth. That's unique. That's by wool and by linen. We're speaking about other cloths. So let me ask you a question, guys. Simple. If you have a item that is 3 tvachim goat's hair, 3 tvachim goat's hair. Now, in order for it to be considered a keli, it has to be 4 tvachim. But there is an add-on from something else connected to the 3 tvachim of goat hair. Does it bring it up to the 4? So the Mishnah says, if what's added onto the goat's hair is cloth is more chamer than goat's hair, right? Because cloth is susceptible to tumah even if it's only 3 tvachim. More significant combines with the less significant. Let's read it inside. Zehaklal kol hamechuber loy. If something is connected, just for example, to the goat's hair, you don't have the 4 tvachim of goat's hair. You have a piece of material that's 3 by 3, and there is a 4th, but the 4th is something else. So like this, min hachamer mimenu. If the final tefach is something that's more chamer, like I mentioned, cloth is more chamer than goat's hair, because cloth, even 3 by 3 is considered a keli. You don't have 3 by 3, you only have 1 tefach of the cloth, but I don't care. But since you have some total of 4, 3 of goat, and 1 is something that is more significant, then it combines. Min hakal mimenu, but let's say you have a piece of hide, a tefach by a tefach, which is connected to the 3 tvachim of the goat's hair. You have a sum total of 4, but what you added on to the goat's hair was something that is more lenient, less significant. That's the Gavaldik Klal. So something that is less significant does not combine to more significant. So if a guy had 2 cups of wine and they have 1 cup of beer, you gotta have another cup of wine. Gavaldik. Amar Rav Nachman, let's have another few minutes. Amar Rav Nachman, Amar Rav. Today, kamotako. If you had 2 cups of wine before the meal, now in those days, they would actually bring the table when they brought the meal. We learned this in the beginning of our PESACHIM. Right? Ideally, used to make kiddush before they brought the table in. So people used to drink wine before they would eat. We also learned that wine opens up the appetite. It fits, everything fits together. So if someone had 2 cups of wine before the meal, but they also had 1 cup ataka on the table during the meal, so is there... how do we judge it? They combine. You're good. You didn't have zugais. But if you had 1 cup before the meal and 1 on the table, it does not combine. Why? Because wine during the meal is more chashuv. Beautiful. more significant doesn't combine to the less significant. It's the other way around. That which is lesser becomes subservient to, and yes, it does combine. I don't understand. You're speaking about combinations. Now we're trying to remedy the table. We're trying to remedy the person. Who cares when the person drank the wine? If at the end of the day you drank a sum total of 3 cups of wine, then you're not connected to zugais. This is part of his question. And he had 3 cups. I don't care when he had it. Okay. Now we're going to skip the parentheses. So, but he does agree to one thing, that the kula alma, but I will agree, even the one who asked the question, that if you had 2 cups ataka on the table, 2 cups on the table, and after you benched, you had another cup, that 3rd cup does not combine. And how do I know that from? Again, here the Gemara speaks about the Maisa Bav Mitzia Peivav of Rabbi Bar Nachmani, Ki Hahi Maisa Rabbi Bar Nachmani, that the Gemara says in Bav Mitzia that when he saw the king's messenger losing his mind and he wanted to help him, he told the waiter bring the table back and give him a 3rd cup. Not give him a 3rd cup. Because after you bench, that's connected to PESACHIM here again. After, what did we learn? That after benching, you make a way to Priyagofen. Why do you make another Priyagofen? You made a way to Priyagofen by Kiddush. So we answered, no, that benching is mamash mafsik. So here, everyone will agree that if a person drank 2 during the meal, and they benched, and they had a 3rd cup after the meal, that 3rd cup does not combine. Now, what do you do? Now, guys, it doesn't combine because the table was removed. So the word is that in those days, bring the table back and then have a 3rd cup. That will combine. We'll stop over here to be continued. How great is that?
Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Good enough.
When you crack a couple eggs, there's always a little bit of the goo that's in the shell anyway.
But Baruch, I really think that eggs that are cracked already are bidei adam. Bidei adam is not a problem. I really think it's about hard-boiled eggs. Has to be bidei shamayim.
I'm curious, just on a personal level.
Not many people are more particular. Could be. So it depends how. Some people are so particular.
All the bagel shops sell 2 eggs, Rabbi.
Huh?
All the bagel shops sell 2 eggs. Scrambled or sunny side or whatever it is.
That's not a proof. They're not makbid.
That's right. That's the
They
minute.
want you to buy a 3rd egg and pay more money, so they make it 2. So you should